afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Sarah, Marketing Manager here at Sagittarius, and today I'm joined by Sagittarius' Account Manager, Emma Nijjar, and Sitecore Senior Sales Engineer, Gamblen. Today we're going to be exploring how brands can harness the potential of the Sitecore platform through personalisation, and how Sitecore Cortex allows us to do this at scale using AI and machine learning. We'll be taking questions at the end, so please feel free to submit these in the questions box within the webinar portal, and we'll endeavour to answer as many of these at the end of the session. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to Emma to begin today's webinar.
Hi everybody, my name is Emma Nijjar. I'm Account Director and Sitecore Business Optimization Consultant at Sagittarius. So I work with brands and our clients to identify their objectives for personalisation and also to identify all the elements required for a successful personalisation strategy. So I'll be going through sort of the whys and hows of personalisation and also what it means to do that in Sitecore today. So before we get into the why and how of personalisation, let's start at the beginning and look at brand proposition. So in a world of choice, a brand needs to be clear about its brand proposition. It's about recognising that your product or service is not for everybody. Even within a brand, you might need to differentiate based on the customer type and also your price point. So essentially, brand proposition online, no different to a brand proposition offline. There are all sorts of ingredients that go into a brand's proposition, which can be your logo, your USP, etc. But all of these components lead back to one thing, and that is, who are your customers? You need to understand who your customers are. And essentially, by defining what your ideal customer and what it is that you sell that they might want. So what is your brand proposition? What is it that you do best or better than anyone else? We can't be all things to all people, and it's rare that you're genuinely unique. So when it comes to talking about our customers, we have to have a story that is compelling to them. So your business case is to improve your results. And as you're all listening in today, I assume that you want to learn how others approach this. So it ties back to getting personal and improving engagement and experiences, which is underpinned by data and what we learn from this data. So data is key, and we're going to talk through, and we're going to reference, data quite a bit today. So it's not a new idea. For many years, retailers would know their customers and also what their likes and dislikes were. However, nowadays, a good user experience is an expectation. We're used to this, but in terms of UX online, we usually just focus on reducing the friction and not giving a customer a personal experience. So in order to truly understand the opportunities and priorities, we need data, because this will give us the information that we can harness and apply. So as I already said, data is key. It helps you to understand your customer segments. It also helps you to understand the real customer journey. So not what you think they are, but actually what people are going through on the website and also the buying cycle, etc. So what are the opportunities? So understanding the real customer journeys allows you to understand what is actually working and also what is not working on those. And sometimes the actual failures of those customer journeys are where you can get that nugget of information, and those sometimes are the ones that you can turn into some really interesting sort of personalization opportunities. And again, so both those things are opportunities for personalization, reducing the friction, and also doing this sort of the A/B testing, so that test and learn approach. And also, friction creates magic. If we truly understand our audience, we can turn friction into magic. Agencies can legitimately help brands connect technology to experiences. We are those sense makers. We also help find the problem in the first place through data and analytics. Sadly, about 80% of IT budgets is often just spent on keeping the lights on and not actually driving through change. So what is personalization? Personalization is a tool that most marketeers aspire to deliver, but research shows that very few actually do. Personalization lets you keep up with evolving customer demands, delivering targeted content in real time, and then making those contextual decisions based on results that you trust. It's essentially a method for displaying targeted, relevant content to your site visitors. And within Sitecore, you can personalize based on users' characteristics and their behavior, such as location, the goals they've triggered, or even previous visits. So you may ask, why bother? Firstly, it gives you that better return on investment. So allows you to make the most of Sitecore and not just treat it as a content management system, but actually allow you to utilize all of those marketing toolkit items that are out of the box. It also allows for a more meaningful engagement. So personalization has nowadays moved away from the hello John in an email. It's about segmenting the audience to help them find what they're looking for quicker and easier. It also allows you to build those stronger relationships with your customers. So how do you get your customers to return? The more engaged customers are, the more revenue you're likely to make and the more loyal that they will become. And also, lastly, it helps to improve conversion rates. So with personalization, we often see an average uplift on a CR of around 19%. However, with Sitecore, we often see much more than this. So with personalization, you can ensure that the right content reaches the right contacts, for example, by showing, hiding, or adjusting content. So these are just some very simple examples where you could potentially, based on geo-IP and understanding the location and also understanding what the weather is in that location, you could show categories that are more relevant to that weather. So on here, it's raining in that area, therefore we're going to potentially show sort of wet wear attire. And also if somebody has added something to their basket and not checked out when they return, you may want to offer them an exclusive discount for having added something to their basket, etc. So these are just very simple ideas. And for us, personalization is everywhere. So how do we identify our users' behavior? So within Sitecore, there are two types of behavior that we can personalize by: implicit and explicit behavior. So implicit behavior is where we deduce what users want by tracking the pages they're viewing, is what links they're clicking on and what path they're following on the site, etc. And then there's explicit behavior, and this is where a user identifies what their interests are by maybe downloading a data sheet, searching for a particular keyword. It might also be what device they're on, the goals they've achieved, or even their location. We have a small amount of explicit data, but within Sitecore, we're able to harness a huge amount of implicit data as we learn more about a visitor as they move around the website and also from their multiple visits as well. So, what is context marketing? It's an approach that delivers measurable, relevant experience that improves performance. It builds your loyalty and drives real results across each of your customer engagement channels. It empowers businesses to know every customer and also shapes their experiences in real time and at scale. So real time is the only time that counts, and to stay relevant, you must stay ahead. It also is about information at the right time, in the right place, to the right person. And this will improve your performance and ultimately drive results. So the basics of what this means and how we do this. So each customer interaction means something, and each touch builds upon the next. We do this through three things. So firstly is contextual intelligence. The next one is all around your content management. And finally, it's around marketing automation. So contextual intelligence gives you the information you need about your consumer, whether it's location, the profile they've matched, the device they're on, or their content that they've consumed. And we gather all of this information to build up a bigger picture of that particular person. We then have the content management, and this is your contextual intelligence, which feeds into this content management system, which gives you the ability to manage the digital content or the passage itself. Therefore, the content you manage is more relevant for that visitor. And this then feeds into your marketing automation program. It gives you the ability to deliver tailored content wherever your customer may be or whatever device in an automatic way, so that certain predefined audiences actions automatically trigger the delivery of that content. This can also be referred to as omni-channel automation. This is actually where Sitecore comes into its own, and you can really start to make the most of your investment into Sitecore. So I get asked how difficult it is to do personalization, and my answer to all my clients is that from a technology point of view with Sitecore, it is actually really simple. Anyone can go in and start looking at using personalization. However, the difficulty or the time-consuming part comes from content and imagery. So content imagery generation can be time consuming. You might not have dedicated teams to this, or you might have a smaller group of people that work on content. Before, you had to just consider that one page of content, but if you want to personalize, you need to have multiple content or imagery for each personalized element of the page, so you can see how that can then stack up. We always hear the mythical phase 2 or phase. We'll do it in those phases, but the problem is we often see that it never happens. So how do we get there? What steps do we need to take? We say to clients, you just need to personalize enough to make a difference. This allows you to start on the personalization sooner and start to see the positive results. There's no point in trying to sort of do too much in one go. And also, it's good to start thinking about, rather than personalization, maybe looking at it as segmentation. There's too many visitors to a website to be personal. We need to put people into sort of buckets, which ultimately means group similar looking visitors together into profiles. And dependent on your version of Sitecore, it's advisable to check your analytics are on so that you're tracking the data, and also to see if you've got geo-IP and device detection enabled, as they are quick, easy wins for personalization opportunities. And also then it comes to the content architecture. The website ideally needs to be built in line with Sitecore's best practice, which is essentially means that you need to have componentized web pages, because if you don't, it just means that you're going to have to personalize a whole page rather than individual content components within that page. Goals need to be defined and implemented, and the same with profiles. They need to be defined and implemented. And what we actually carry out is SBOSS workshops with our clients, and this helps to identify the goals, their engagement value, profiles, pattern cards, which are all the Sitecore terms and things that you need to implement for a personalization strategy. So implementation, the first steps to personalization, what do we need to do? So firstly, as I've just said, we need to define the goals and engagement scores, and also then configure those into Sitecore. We need to then, with Sitecore, they use rules to define personalization situations, and this is the rule setting editor within Sitecore is a tool that applies logic-based rules to content management, and you can also see this within Sitecore yourself. The next thing is setting up profile cards and personas. So once these have been set up in the marketing panel, you can then assign a profile to each component and also page content. And this helps to identify what content page you have and what profile is it associated with. And then we can personalize. You can test this through the Experience Explorer, which is a tool that enables you to simulate visits to a DMS-enabled website. There's also more than 100 out-of-the-box personalization rules to choose from, and these can also be layered. So, for example, you might want to do a rule that is set for a visitor who has visited more than once, and if they've also triggered the goal add to basket, but not triggered the purchase goal. So you can see that you can do very simple or more complex rules out of the box. So some potential quick wins. So firstly, identify where you can personalize, so understanding whether you're componentized pages. Also, maybe give first-time visitors a special welcome, leverage their location through geo-IP, and also looking at using FXM, which is the beacon that you can put on other websites of yours, which are maybe not on Sitecore, so potentially on booking engines, etc. And then next, what do we do? We implement and we optimize. So we implement everything. We monitor and assess what is working and what's not working. So nothing is ever finished. We learn from the data. And we just keep repeating that process. And then we can also start investigating and looking at using sort of A/B testing and multivariate testing. This allows you to test alternate versions of your website, and also find out which components or combinations are the most effective when visitors, which can all be done through Sitecore. You can quickly evaluate the test results, giving you the insight into the content that functions best with your audience. This can help you to create more successful campaigns with higher goal conversions. So now I want to share with you a case study of how we've taken our first steps into the personalisation experience for one of our clients, Red Carnation Hotels. And we've just focused on one of their hotels. It's a deliberate, simple idea to prove the point that anyone can start on a personalisation journey. So for Red Carnation Hotels, and as with all hotels, we want to try and increase online conversion, and each hotel offers different facilities and appeal. So what we did was, this is their old website. It's very cluttered. There was no clear call to action, and also no clear direct link to the booking engine. So from a sort of a UX point of view, we thought we would start looking at what changes could we make to this landing page to potentially help improve conversions. So what we did was that we decided to take one of their hotels, which was the Rubens, and we put together an A/B test for a new layout of this landing page. And it's largely the same information, but it's simple. The check availability button is at the top in the middle of the main image. It's a significant call to action, and it also gives more flexible layout structure, and the mobile view was much better. So you can clearly see call to actions, and the content was easier to consume. And you can see here from the stats, we initially did about 25% of the traffic gave the new version, and the effect was sort of a 17% uplift in the booking engine, which was brilliant. We very quickly increased to about 75% of the traffic, and then eventually went on to the full 100% once we could see that the effect was positive. Sitecore does recommend running the test for about 90 days to gain sensible data, but it does depend on the volume of your traffic that you have through the website. So, So using Sitecore Analytics, we looked at data on location of visitors to all the hotels, and could see that for Ashford Castle, mainly the traffic was coming from the US, and then Ireland was second, and for Oyster Box, it was mainly South Africa and then UK. So what we took from this was that we looked at the local location information to drive a personalisation strategy that focuses on your likely interest based on your location. We could also see a change in profile based on the hotel, and this was sort of layered on with the location data that we just looked at. We could see there was a clear split on people booking rooms or restaurants. We also took this data and introduced changes to the homepage content, which will amplify the restaurant or encourage you to book at the moment, depending on what profile you are when you are on the website. And we could see sort of about a 13% increase in average time on page. There was also a 15% decrease in bounce rate overall, which is some really positive results. So these are out-of-the-box Sitecore reports that we look at. So what we did was we took the data that we just identified, and we created a personalisation proof of concept for one of the group's hotels, so using the Rubens again. So the example that we've got here, so this is your primary visit. The primary visit is, so this is your first time to the website, we don't know who you are, we don't know what you're interested in. So this is content that's around sort of rooms and also restaurant bookings. It's very generic to the hotel, but it does offer that clear split between stay guests and promotions. It's still got clear content, clear call to actions, etc. But what we're trying to deduce from here is what content are you interested in, therefore what profile will you be put into in Sitecore, which will allow us to then personalize based on your interests. So the next step on that was to, once we looked into the profile data and understood that the two top profiles for the Rubens were the Stay Susie, which is a stay guest, because we like to give our profiles names, and the Food and Drink Diana, which is people that are interested in food and drink. So what we did was, if you were a stay guest, the users would only be showing content on the homepage to promote offers to stay at the Rubens. The lead banner promotes the special offers on the rooms and suites. You've got a hotel overview focused purely on amenities. You've got supporting video content, and you've also got that embedded TripAdvisor reviews, keeping you on the site, giving you that that key information there. And this was the same page as that generic version, but it's just being the components are being personalized based on that profile. And we also did the same for the food and drink guest as well. So rather than it being promoted on staying at the hotel, it will be all around key call to actions for actually booking a room. Booking a restaurant. Apologies. So we could really see that the personalization proof of concept results were really positive. So year on year, there was a 19% increase in e-commerce conversion rate. There was a 15% increase in online transactions, and also a 13% increase in booking value, which is amazing. And we had some softer KPIs that improved as well. So the bounce rate was down by 14%, page views were down by 11.5%, which basically shows that we are presenting more relevant content faster to the visitor. So another thing that we can look to do is what channels are driving the right sort of traffic. And again, these are all reports that are in Sitecore. So measuring bookings is the ultimate KPI for this client. But in the meantime, we need to work out which paid traffic is driving the right sort of engagement. Then we can look at improving the on-site conversion of those users. So we could see that Google was winning on volume, but Bing was winning on engagement value. So pound for pound, that was giving a better return on investment. So here I'm showing you how we can look to prioritize what we improve next by looking at customer journeys which are most common and result in a positive outcome. This is again utilizing reports in Sitecore Analytics. TripAdvisor is clearly a good traffic driver and appears to be a gateway to other hotels to the group, which for them was an important KPI. This kind of customer journey analysis is possible, and you do have the tools to do it. You just need to ensure you have sensible goals and data tagged up correctly. We could also start possibly comparing this journey across multiple hotels to see what works and what doesn't work for the different hotels. And these are all to help give you some proof of concepts of personalization. And also, this is where the next phase of personalization comes in, that we use AI to identify key trends and opportunities and propose possible solutions. And this is using Cortex, which Chris will talk through in a moment. So I'm just going to sum up some things there. So personalization lets you keep up with your evolving customer demands. It allows you to deliver relevant targeted content in real time and also allows you to make contextual decisions. So AI and machine learning are able to help with automating personalization. And with the latest version of Sitecore, this is now possible. So you don't need to do it manually all yourself. So as Microsoft say, AI is to be used to empower every person and every organization to achieve more. And this is why Sitecore have focused on this. So with Sagittarius and our team of data experts and experience optimization, and with the tools within Sitecore, this helps to create the magic. So just very quickly to recap, personalization, it always works. Start with your analytics, know your customer, understand the whole experience, and repeat that. It's always test and learn, identify what works and what doesn't work, and learn from that. So thank you very much. We'll now move over to Chris from Sitecore, who will start talking about Cortex and what that means.
Thank you very much, Emma. Yes, so whilst we're just transitioning the slides across, with any luck, you guys can see my screen. Oh, no, you don't. I need to click the button. That helps. So, yes, thank you very much. We're going to walk you through some slides just now talking about what Cortex is. It was introduced with Sitecore 9.1, which we released back in November of last year. And my role in the company is as the sales engineering lead, so I often get involved in the very nitty-gritty of what the platform is capable of achieving, but also my role is to help customers understand and explore how the technologies that we're releasing as an organization can better empower both your technical audiences, your technical teams, and of course your marketing teams. And of course the focus here around Cortex is very much around using machine learning and the wealth of data that Sitecore's been generating, and exploiting that to allow us to better target our individuals. So this is what we're going to go through as part of the Cortex slideshow. So just a quick recap, though, in terms of where Sitecore has come from. So as many of you may know, historically, Sitecore was born as a pure content management system back in 2001. And we evolved over time, of course, to become the market-leading content management system. But somewhere around kind of 2007, 2008, we started to kind of foray into the analytics space. And so, of course, not only could we take on board the learnings that we've taken from a content level perspective, understanding that we can kind of manage and curate all that content for different channels, but we can also then start to take the learnings of the analytics space and understanding an awful lot more about how our visitors are interacting with the assets and the content that we're putting together to provide a much more kind of holistic view about how our website is actually performing. And so, of course, we are able to do this inside Sitecore because we have that kind of one-to-one relationship with, Mr. Customer, you're requesting a page from us, and Sitecore, we can have gathering the analytics. So we can do this at scale, and of course, more importantly, and most recently, of course, we can do it in compliance with the various regulations such as GDPR. So, of course, it's very important to understand that not everyone wants to have their data, of course, stored. So having the capabilities inside Sitecore to anonymize that data, but still whilst maintaining the valuable insights that it can give from a marketing perspective, provides everyone with a very happy kind of medium. So again, combining content and analytics allows us to kind of bring the sweet spots essentially where we are with Sitecore right now. So unlike other systems whereby you have an integration between a content layer and an analytics layer, this doesn't exist inside Sitecore. We are one and the same system. The analytics is very much a key core component of the content management system, and it just doesn't ensure that we, of course, are able to offer a truly unified platform between two parts of that. And again, it's this power here, this unified platform, that allows us the opportunity as marketers to create relevant personalized experiences in real time and at scale to ensure that we are targeting the right message and the right experiences to our visitors as appropriate. But again, as those of you that have been using Sitecore will know, it's not just personalization and analytics tracking, it's also other features that we have in the platform too. So we have the ability to improve content with things like A/B testing. You saw the path analyzer as well just now. Again, the ability to understand user journeys and maybe look to optimize journeys through the website with content and promotions and experiences as appropriate in those situations. The challenge, of course, though, with all of these things is that it's a manual intervention or manual process that's required. We need to look at the analytics, we need to look at the data, we need to then come up with the content, the messaging, deploy that messaging appropriately in the right areas for the right user journeys and for the right segments. And of course, this inherently leads us to certain amounts of bias, for example. So we may tend to focus on certain sectors and segments that we know exist, and of course, maybe to the detriment of other segments that we aren't aware. And of course, when we start to look at organizations that are growing and more rapidly adopting this level of technology, the idea of scalability becomes a bit of a challenge. If you've got a very small marketing team, doing this all the time can be a time-consuming job. So how do we go ahead and optimize this with Sitecore? Well, of course, that's where Cortex comes in. So because we have this underlying mass of data that's being generated by the Sitecore Analytics database, the XDB, we can exploit this experience data with the machine learning layer on top of it so that we can really start to understand and gain insights automatically from the system. So now as a marketing team, we can start to look at the data and be much more agile in how we respond to it, because the system is now suggesting areas and activities that we weren't even necessarily aware that exist. And as a part of this initial release of Cortex, we have included both suggested personalization and predictive outcomes, both of which we'll look at in a little bit more detail later on. So, of course, the challenge when it comes to all of these things, as I'm sure we're all aware, is that customer journeys these days are not simple. For myself, I'll go and explore things through searches, through emails, I'll go and jump onto a mobile app, I'll talk to my friends, all sorts of different channels that really, as an organization, we have a very difficult time trying to track these engagements, because again, they really are kind of all over the place. And so compounded by that, of course, is that traditional systems would have very siloed elements of data here. So we may not have the insights from our email tool to combine with the insights from our website and, of course, the mobile app view to really provide this kind of holistic view of the entire journey as an individual or a visitor kind of navigates the different journeys. So, of course, when Cortex comes into play, we as Sitecore don't have those silos, because everything is maintained through the Sitecore Experience database. And so, of course, because of that, the Sitecore Experience Cloud provides us that visibility across all of the channels, all the data, because we're linking it all back into the Experience database. And again, because Cortex is simply a layer on top of this layer, we can really start to make some headway in terms of understanding what is working and, of course, what is not working between systems. And as we've mentioned already so far today, data is absolutely key. we do need, any machine learning platform does need an awful lot of structured data to be able to work. And if we don't have lots of data, then of course we end up with weak machine learning. And this weak machine learning can lead to, of course, to incorrect decisions, incorrect assumptions, and just a bunch of not good stuff. So we need that large amount of structured data. And of course, we're in a unique position in Sitecore because we have that large set of structured data. The XDB is sitting there, mining away, looking at all the interactions, looking at all the data that's being generated by your visitors, and it's there and it's ready to be exploited for the purposes of data, of machine learning and data priorities as well. So layer on top of that, the Cortex engine, as I said, exploits that XDB data. But also what's very important, again, from those of you with a slightly more technical background, will understand that Sitecore has always been very good at being extensible, so hooking into other systems. So yes, we provide machine learning out of the box, and we utilize Microsoft Machine Learning Server out of the box, but a lot of large organizations have already got investments perhaps in other technologies such as IBM Watson and so on. And so again, we were conscious when we were developing the Cortex engine that we had to make sure that it could integrate with other best of breed technologies and platforms as appropriate. So again, very flexible that's there. Let's take a look at the suggested personalization now that comes with 9.1 and see how we can how it works essentially. So again, for those of you that have used the testing process inside Sitecore will be familiar with this screen that's here. And so multivariate testing or component A/B testing allows us to kind of define various options of our content and our component, run the test, run the data, and then come back and compare the results of that. And of course, what we're seeing on the screen here is that actually there were 3 experiences that were tested, and experience 1 and both experience number 2 actually failed to do better than the original, hence why we're seeing a 0 experience effect, because our tests just simply weren't successful over the baseline. But of course, what's important though is that with Cortex on top of this, we take that same set of data, we run it through a message bus, and we take an event and we throw it into the data processing engine. So now we've got a situation whereby Sitecore has seen, okay, we've got a test running, there's some data that's been kind of assembled as a result of that test. Let's now process that data and throw it into the machine learning engine, and then run it through a number of what we call machine learning workers. Now, machine learning workers are essentially just a bits of functionality that will go crunch the data and work to a trained model, and off the back of that trained model come out with some results to say, yep, here's some suggested personalization, or here's some predictive outcomes, or indeed as time goes on there'll be a lot more of these workers that come out. But the point is, this is all happening behind the scenes as we're running the standard process of deploying tests and personalization inside Sitecore. It's all working behind the background. And of course, off the back of this, once the machine learning workers have done their number crunching, data will come back, will be sent back into this message bus, and then processed again by the standard Sitecore model to ensure that we are capturing all the data that's required for the process. And of course, what's really important is then that once we've now crunched this data and it's gone through this cycle of understanding how the data is there, what's working, what's not working, where are some insights, where are not some insights, then of course we take those results and store them somewhere logical. And again, the default in Sitecore is that we store it in the same Sitecore Analytics database environment. And of course, we can then utilize that then for reporting purposes and optimization purposes. And of course, in the case of predicting outcomes, we have the ability to use that as a personalization rule as well. But again, you'll see that in a second. But once again, for organizations that are doing some more advanced things around machine learning, we have the ability to take this same level of, or the same results, sorry, and actually stick them in any old platform that you require, such as outputting them as a standard Excel report or dumping into a tool such as Power BI. So we can start to kind of cross-pollinate the data sets from different platforms, different insights to really provide something meaningful. So from a personalization perspective, this is the dialog box that now starts to appear when you're using the Cortex engine with personalization. So again, we've saved and stored the data from the reporting database as a result of the machine learning processes that are taking place. And Cortex is now providing us insights into understanding, well, okay, yeah, these are the standard results, but hang on a second, here's some other stuff that you may not have been aware of. And as you can see here, there are 2 experiences that have been highlighted for us specifically. So let's drill into the first one here. And you can see that we've actually pulled out a very specific segment here. And this segment we've identified, again, because of the built-in device detection and GUIP detection, that visitors that came from Denmark and the Netherlands, in combination with a particular campaign, and were on a tablet, were able to trigger and see, drill down basically, and they were doing a lot more than we were expecting them to do. So we can see that even though only 8.3% of the total visitor count fit into this particular segment, we see that actually within that segment, they were converting almost 2 times more, a little bit more actually, 2 times more than we expected them to. So again, we've got Cortex telling us that there's this small segment of individuals that fit a very particular niche. We've identified them though, and identified more specifically that they were converting much more highly than other people were. So again, we can now take this data and we can start to build out personalization rules experiences to better target and better understand the segment of individuals that we see here too. And of course, the predicted effect of that is nearly a 20% increase of value conversion in the platform. So again, some super insights that we can get from the Cortex platform. And going back to my point that I made at the very beginning, this is the kind of insight that allows marketing teams to be much more effective, rather than having to sit back and wait and test and kind of guess essentially in a lot of cases as to what will and what won't work. We have Cortex telling us, well, actually, based on the data insights that we've got access to, no, this is what we will see happening as a result of this, and also gleaming, of course, these small segments out that we maybe not even aware of. I also mentioned as well that the other feature of the Cortex platform that we have out the box is predictive outcomes. So this actually, as I said, surfaces itself as a personalization rule, and you can see an example on the screen right now. And again, as a part of that Cortex processing algorithm, we have the ability to take all the data, do some crunching, and understand, okay, what does my typical set of visitors do, and how quickly and how commonly do they get to the point of a conversion, or in this case, converting into an outcome. And so again, using the machine learning process, we can constantly evolve and adapt that understanding of what your typical visitor is, and then we can start to compare the current visitor against that standardized model. And so as you can see here, we can see, well, actually, based on the viewing behaviors today, Chris looks like he has a greater than 80% chance of converting, in which case, cool, let's maybe tone down some of our offering. Let's maybe add in some very simple kind of personalization to nudge the individual towards a basket or a conversion, whatever it may be. The flip side, of course, being that actually, based on the behaviors of Chris today, his likely chance of converting is, say, 30%. Then let's change everything up. Let's keep it really quite obvious that we want to try and get Chris to convert. Let's offer some promotional spots. Let's offer some discounts, coupons, whatever it may be that pops up on the page here. But having that understanding of the likelihood of someone converting is, again, a super powerful insight to have inside the platform. And again, all these features are here with Cortex right now in 9.1, and they will be evolving over time. There'll be more processes and machine learning workers that we introduce as time goes on to encompass more features such as some of the commerce elements and so on. But again, Cortex is certainly a very interesting proposition for customers right now, because we have the ability to really exploit the data that's being generated by the platform. So that was a very quick kind of run through, but thank you ever so much for your time today. So stop the last slide and open it up for questions.
Thanks, Chris. We've had a couple of questions from the audience, so I'm just going to dive straight in. One specifically for you. We've been using Sitecore version 8 and DXB for a simple personalization for a while. What happens with all of the data that we've been collecting?
Fantastic question. So really, actually, quite a great thing here is you can simply migrate that data across as you would and as you will do, migration from version 8 to version 9, and that data set there can be worked on immediately by Cortex. So you lose nothing at all in terms of the data set, but you gain immediate insights into that data and that knowledge that's kind of currently sat there dormant, shall we say, inside the data set.
Great, thank you. Emma, we've got one for you regarding sort of setting up personalization. We want to use the Sitecore toolkit for personalization, but don't know where to start. What would you recommend as a good first stepping stone to getting personalization working?
Perfect. Okay. So we actually say to our clients that start with some SBOSS workshops, which we run, and they are Sitecore Business Optimization Services. And these are basically a very simple series of workshops that take you through the theory of personalization, so stuff that we've gone through today. It also helps businesses to understand their objectives and why they want to do personalization. And then it moves into Sitecore specifics on sort of identifying the goals, their engagement value, the profiles and patterns, and also the final outcome is we work on a personalization strategy with our clients, and these are all the elements that you basically need to have identified before you start personalizing anything in Sitecore. So what we've done is pared it back and made it into some really simple steps, and gives you some tangible outputs from these workshops as well.
Okay, thank you. And once you've kind of got all that personalisation set up, how much time and effort do you believe needs to be spent on personalisation and maintaining that on the site?
So and as I've said already today, we always tell our clients to start small, otherwise you will never start on the personalization journey. One of the things that we start doing the client is understanding what's a proof of concept. So taking a key user journey and start looking at those personalization opportunities within that journey, and that then just gives you a focus on one area of the website to really start looking at and identifying what works and what doesn't. So within a few days you can come up with that personalization proof of concept, and then sort of within another few days you can start implementing that into Sitecore basically. So it doesn't have to be all-encompassing. So within a week you could actually have your first personalization opportunity set up in Sitecore.
Okay, thank you. And just a remaining question for Cortex, and just around how does this affect architecture of the site? Do we need to add any more servers, or is there any other technical challenges which we need to address?
Cool, thank you. Yes, another great question. So yes, there are of course some new components that come into play when you're dealing with Cortex. We have obviously been focusing very much as Sitecore on cloud deployments in the last couple of years. So again, utilizing the Microsoft frameworks, deploying into Azure is the kind of obvious way to go forwards. And from a technical perspective, there's a whole bunch of different tools and resources we have there to allow and to facilitate much more easily deployments into the cloud. We also, of course, though, do offer our managed cloud offering as part of Sitecore. So that's the ability for us to kind of provision all the infrastructure for you guys, and then ultimately the application that your website is deployed into that, and so we can look after all that kind of process for you and all.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Right, we don't have any more questions, so that's everything for today. Just want to personally thank yourself and Emma for joining us on the webinar. Thank you to everybody that has attended today. We will share a recording and the slides with you all, and we'll share that via our YouTube channel later on this week. So thanks a lot, and we'll speak to you soon.